Ladies and gentlemen, faithful listeners, welcome back to another episode of the Keystone Chronicles podcast. This episode has been a long time coming. Me and this guy have been trying to record this episode for probably about a year or more. The Anthracite Antler Addict, the cool honky himself, Mr. Travis Melochick. What a great episode in talking about the silver linings in every hunt. And we talk about failures, we talk about successes, and how that stuff all comes together at the end when you just need to learn something every time you're out there. So, loved bringing this up. It's not something I really hear a lot of people talk about, and we don't just measure success in kill, 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 right? And that's what you see on Instagram. That's what you see on Facebook, the whole community, outdoor television, YouTube, and that's not the reality of things, guys. We make mistakes, and we try to learn from them, and we move forward, and you can read these books and you can listen to these podcasts and all that other stuff, but some of this stuff you need to put to work and figure out what works and what doesn't, because every situation is different, and you just take the good with the bad, and you take every win that you can, and you also figure out why you lost if you do. So we also talk about what scrapes can look like, and some mock scrape action. We talk about deer management. We talk about some industry fakes, some of the fake stuff that runs rampant through Instagram and all the other social medias and YouTube. Also, he has a great Instagram page, guys. Go give him a follow on the Anthracite Antler Addicts page on Instagram. Guys, you also may want to get the earmuffs out for the kids on this one. We get a little excited here and there. That's all I got for you. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Moving forward, thank you guys so much for the support. Here's to another episode. Thank you, and God bless. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Keystone Chronicles podcast. Guys, this one's been a long time coming. Me and him make one back and forth here with this damn app that we were trying to use and record on, and finally we kicked it back here to a phone call, and I'm super excited for this one. The Anthracite Antler Addict, the cool honky himself, Travis Melochick. Brother, how are you?
Oh, I'm going pretty good here now that we finally got this some sorted out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. This is the game, right? We have to face technology sometimes, but
Yeah. Technology sucks on our side.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I ain't getting any younger either, and I'm good with technology, but Jesus, sometimes I don't know. I just don't even want to
Oh
deal with
yeah.
it. So,
Understand.
but here we are. We talked about it before we come on, and we kind of know where we want to go with this one. Something I don't feel like a whole lot of people talk about, and it's super relatable, I think, for everybody. And the whole thing that we really want to go over in a proper thesis on this one is going to be the silver linings in everything, whether that be success or failure, because not every season's the same when it comes to whitetail hunting, and it can either be a son of a bitch or it can be one of the greatest things ever. So we're going to go down the road of talking about how we learn things. And also, I'm a big mock scrape guy. I know you're a big mock scrape guy. Run them year round, inventory cameras over them and everything. So we'll definitely daddle on that a little bit, man. But,
Okay.
before we get going, man, go ahead and sell yourself for us. Please tell us who you are, where you're from, what you're all about, and then we'll get moving here into the land of the mythological whitetail.
Oh boy, try to sell myself. That's a hard fucking sell. Yeah, Travis Melochick, born and raised in Schuylkill County. Started Anthracite Antler Addict page on Facebook and Instagram back about 4 years ago, going on now. Did that just solely out of the purpose of me and my friends were discussing how we're sick and tired of the bullshit on TV, and it was unrealistic expectations and unrealistic situations. So, and that was back when YouTube land was still kind of fresh with, local Joes putting their hunting videos on there. And, it was still pretty nice before, the industry got a hold of it. And, that's where we jumped into. And then, so we're still hanging in there, still doing our thing, and kind of become infamous for speaking my mind, whether that be good, bad, or ugly. I just don't give a shit, and I stay true to who I am and what I've always been. Your run-of-the-mill bow hunter. I'm nothing special. I put in my work just like everybody else. And, like you said, I've gained the knowledge I have from screwing up an immense amount of times. I screw up more than I succeed.
Yeah.
But that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me coming back.
And you say that, would you say and consider yourself an aggressive hunter?
I have never been an aggressive hunter until last season. This past season, I was always the guy that tried to play the long game, which always narrowed me down to maybe 1 or 2 deer and one chance a season at an animal. Now, 2 seasons ago, it made me realize, okay, I'm getting like 12, 13, 14, 15 shooters on camera. I got to be more aggressive. Who cares if I burn one, if I bump one, if I screw up on one? I have how many more to throw another chance at? Yep. So, instead of playing the long game and sitting back and waiting for that perfect time, I'm going in there trying. This past season, I went in there, I formulated plans and went after it. So yes, now I am an aggressive hunter. It was just years of missed opportunities I felt that, culminated in me saying I have to make a drastic change to my style.
Yep. I love it, man. I was pretty much in the same boat until about probably, I don't know, I would say probably about 5 years ago. I just threw caution to the wind. I said, all right, whatever. I don't care. I'm just going to go and hunt if I want to hunt right there. And I know that, or think that, my thermals, my wind might be right. I'm going in there. If I burn them up, burn them up. If not, I'll move on to another deer. And honestly, I've been very, very successful being a lot more aggressive. Now, I will say there's a whole difference, on public land. I mean, I don't care. I'm moving around. I mean, I'm not going to go in and mess somebody up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we were talking before, if I know somebody's in there, I'm not that guy. But
yeah,
I'm not, going to tiptoe like I do on the private land that I hunt, which I think sometimes the private land I hunt is way harder to hunt than the game lands because it's tiptoeing on everybody else because they're in there hunting and you don't want to mess them up. And, I don't know. I love the freedom of hunting the game lands. There's just such a vast amount of land, and our state is, dude. We got it so good. Like when you talk to some other people, they're like, dude, I can't believe your house, where you live at, you can't go 10 miles without hitting a different tract of game lands. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, but your season this year, man, you were on a shit ton of good deer early, and you knew they were there from the year before. So let's go ahead, man, right into your season. Go ahead and fill us in on how it kind of went last year and what you were looking at, like early season into your, how you were trying to get ready for the archery season.
Well, my prep this past season was just I found spots 2 seasons before, and I just kind of like cultivated them into, these spots I was going to hunt this past season. I'm like, all right, I went in there. I let my camera soak for a complete year without even hunting the spot. And I got the information I needed to go in and make game plans without even stepping foot into the area. So I waited until like August and set cameras in those areas. I doctored up scrapes that I had already found. Set cameras up in those areas because putting them in on scrapes and trails and signpost rubs right around like August, September timeframe, I know the batteries will last, all the way through the season. So I put that stuff out, like I said, doctored the scrapes, and then just checked the cameras as I hunted the areas. I lie. I set cameras out in August, and then July 1st, I went in and redid scrapes and checked cameras. I will say that's I remember that. And then I got an inventory of who was who in what area, and then I started making plans from there. And as the season progressed, early in the season, I was really mainly focused on trying to get a doe. That didn't pan out. For some reason, the last 2 seasons, I couldn't buy a doe. I mean, I see them, but I just can't get a shot. It's just either the big bitch in front picks me out and leads them astray, or, they're just out of range. So, I got to find a fix for that because I won't eat my freezer more than anything. But as far as bucks go, yeah, I want to say within the first week of archery season, I had already seen 10 buck and one shooter, and the rest were smaller bucks. Either they were illegal or basket bucks that I wanted to get through to the next season.
Mm-hmm.
So then comes mid-October. Now I hunted a spot that I call Scrape City, and it was October, might have been 20. I think it was October 23rd. Is when I hunted Scrape City the first time because of historical data I gathered from the seasons that I just ran cameras and didn't hunt the area. There was always a period of activity, daylight activity of mature bucks moving through that area at that particular time. So knowing that, on October 22nd was a Sunday, I think, and me and my dad snuck down in there and set up my stand and everything. We had everything set up. All I needed to do was bring my backpack, my bow, my arrows, and I was good to go.
Mm-hmm.
So we snuck down in, set everything up. The next morning, I was up there 90 minutes before first light, set up in my stand, didn't spook anything. Everything was perfect, except for I forgot my release. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best.
So I'm up there probably 2 miles by truck, and then parked and unloaded my bike, and then probably another 1.5 miles on the bike, and then another 700 yards walk in the wood to get to this spot. And I told my dad, I texted him, I said, I did something really stupid, and I need you to bring my release up to the break-off point where I go down into the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, you better hope a big one don't show up. I'm like, don't you put that evil on me. Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. And he just laughed, and he's like, I'll be up there at 9 o'clock. I'll use this as my morning walk. So I said I was going to get down at 8:30 and sneak up, to the break-off point, meet him, grab my release, and then sneak back down in. I was going to sit the rest of the whole day. And sure enough, 8:30 rolls around. I'm getting my stuff ready to climb down, and I hear a grunt, and I'm like, no, not now, please, not now. And here comes a deer. It's a doe, and she's grunting. She's making little doe grunts. I'm like, is that really the deer I heard? And then I heard the deep grunt that I initially heard right behind her, and I saw him coming down the path. I'm like, son of a bitch. And sure enough, here comes this 18 plus wide, heavy, gigantic bodied, mature freaking 8-point right behind her. And he stops 20 yards, broadside, wide open, not knowing anything that's going on. I'm just like, this is what happens. This is what happens. I am humbled. God humbled me. So I made a plan. I executed it. It worked all the way up until the point where I just had a brain fart and forgot my release. So that happened there, and then after that, I had a trip to Kentucky with my buddy Justin Simon down in Kentucky there with him. Spent a week there, saw some great bucks, nice bucks, but the big boys were about a week off. They weren't quite moving yet, and I passed on one buck down there that I would have definitely, poleaxed in freaking Pennsylvania. He was a big, heavy 6-point, small brows, but big, giant eyes, super heavy. And he was coming down on this piece of public we were hunting, and he came off this little knob. And again, 23 yards, broadside looking the other way. I had him. I could have been at full draw. He was looking complete opposite, but I had one more day left, and I was like, I got to give it a shot down here. So he got the professional courtesy. And then after Kentucky, I came back, and I had plans to go to Ohio in May. But when I came back, it was on everywhere in every one of my spots. It was crazy. And I kept thinking in my head, I'm not leaving deer to find deer.
Right.
So I'm gonna stay in Pennsylvania and focus on this. And I kind of regret not going to Maine, and I kind of regret not going to Ohio, but at the same time, the knowledge I learned in Pennsylvania over the next couple of weeks was just immense and priceless. So as my season progressed in PA, I made plan after plan after plan, and it all worked out. Every time I went into these spots, my plans worked out to the 95th percentile. I just couldn't get that last 5% luck of getting a shot off. Now, the one day it did happen, it was November 8th. Was it November 8th? Yeah, it was November 8th, actually. And I had a buck come in. I was same spot, Scrape City, going after that same mature buck that I had a run-in with before. And sitting there, gets light out, 7:30 comes. I saw a few deer moving through, a few does moving through. And then all of a sudden I heard a grunt up on the ridge. I'm like, uh-oh. So I hit my bleak can a few times, and then I hear him coming. I'm like, all right, come on down to the Price is Right, bitch. You're getting it. He comes right down to the scrape I overmarked and have a cell phone camera on. Puts on the full display, ripping it up, tearing it to shreds, comes down the exact same trail I planned this out, months and months and months ago. He read the script. I drew back, stopped him at 15 yards, and as soon as I released, he freaking ducked, and I hit nothing but freaking tenderloin. I think I hit maybe one lung just because the way he dropped him, the angle, or maybe the blood had ricocheted. There was thick, bubbly blood on the arrow at one point. And then we followed him for about, 300 yards, and then blood just disappeared. After the season, I pulled cameras in an area about a mile away, and I found him on camera working scrapes and chasing does, and I could see where I hit him. So I think I got one lung, and they've been known to survive on that.
Oh yeah. So, especially in a mature animal. I mean, we never give the whitetail deer enough credit for what it deserves. I mean, people hit.
Oh, they're tanks.
I'm telling you, man. People hit them with their cars going 70 mile an hour. And they roll. They go 50 yards away from where you hit them, and they get up and they go in the woods and they live. Like,
Marcus, I have pictures of a buck I shot back in 2007. He came running right up the mountain to me on a deer drive my dad put on, and I dropped him. When we skinned him out, he had a broken spine. The actual spine was snapped, but I guess the spinal cord didn't incur damage or something, but the spine was broken. I'll send you pictures of it for proof. But I just thought to myself, and his jaw was broken. I'm like, he had to have gotten hit by a car.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could think of. But like you said, how they just find the will to survive.
Mm-hmm. It's funny though, incredible. Man, because there are other deer that I've seen killed and been around that like just didn't have that will.
Yeah.
Like they just weren't strong-willed. Like you see what killed them, and you're like, man, I've hit deer like this, and they didn't bleed very well, or they just didn't quit running, and you knew that they lived because you were getting pictures of them later on in the year or whatever. But I'm telling you, like you said, I mean, God, they're just so tough, especially a mature whitetail, especially like a mature buck. People, they're like, I can't believe, man, I know I put a good shot on that deer, and he's not laying up here, and that's why I tell them, look, don't just jump out of your tree stand and go and track the deer, because I don't know how many times I've been on, you get that panic call. Can you help? Can you come help? Yeah, well, what happened? Well, I shot, and then I went down, and then he jumped up, and I'm like, oh, here we go,
Yep.
So
been there.
Yeah.
But as the season kept going, like I said, I had all these great encounters. I 51 buck encounters. Now there's some repeats in there, but still, I had 51 buck encounters, numerous does, and 7 mature giants that were all within range that I just didn't get a shot on. I picked the spot. I picked, the best conditions for that area.
Mm-hmm.
I went in and it worked out. I just did get a shot, and but that's a huge self-confidence boost that I'm still riding off of. Okay, I'm able to make these game plans and implement them, and they work.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I know what I'm doing a little bit. So that gave me confidence. But it was in pulling cameras after the season where I had already several years of camera history on, and what I saw with my own eyes, I now know which areas, pop off hot in the rut first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, this spot is good from, October 20th till the first week of November. And then this spot, they're not cruising that ridge until this week because it's the same consistent activity within that week, year to year to year on my cameras,
Mm-hmm.
and what I actually saw myself. So now I can strike with a lot more precision, I feel.
Yep.
I'm not even going to bother with that ridge until that week.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that's that information you have. The reason a lot of people don't get that information is because they don't have the patience to do what you've done to get that information.
yeah,
They're not going to put that all together and go back and see. And I even this past year, just a quick example for what happened for me is I've been running cameras on this one ridge for the last 4 years. Well, what I've come to find out is that the bucks are there heavy on my mock scrapes only for the first week and a half, 2 weeks of the season. After that, that pressure must just get them the hell out of there. Now that the signs there and the nocturnal activities there, but the daytime activity is gone.
They're moving away from the pressure. They're just
Yep.
moving away to where there is no human pressure. It doesn't necessarily mean they're nocturnal. They're moving in daylight just further back, and by the time they get to your cameras again, it's dark.
Right. Yep.
So
Yep. And so what I've, really decided is if I'm gonna hunt a deer, in that spot, I'm gonna hunt them as early as possible.
absolutely,
And then move on to the spots that I know and the tried and true areas. Or a good example is the one clear cut that I'll be trying to hunt on this year. That clear cut will be going on 5 years old this year, and right for me,
nasty.
right, and that's primed. It's ready. That for me. That's going to be there's a nice transition in between that clear cut and another clear cut that's about 8 years old, but there's a funnel there, there's a bench there. I mean, a lot of stuff comes together in that location, but like you were saying. I just want to get right into one of the examples that happened to me this year, and what that was I usually start my scouting on like the south side, southwest side. Your anything where your prevailing wind's going to be, and here that is your leeward side for your prevailing wind, and obviously that you got the sun, you got everything going, you got a better fuel, foliage and everything. But just so happens I seen a buck. I forgot my release just like you did. I I got to my spot. I got out of my truck. I'm getting ready to go in the woods, and I'm like, son of a bitch. So I get back in my truck. I go back up the hill, and one of the big bucks I have on camera, he crossed the road in front of me like a big F you. Like, get the fuck. Like, I'm like, so I swing in. I knew I had an extra release in my truck. It's just not one that I shoot with all the time. So I'm like, if he's trailing a doe, I might be able to stalk this deer and get around him. So I swing in, grab my bow, I go running, trying to circle up around him, and he didn't really care that I was there. So I thought, and I tried to work my way and cut him off. Well, whether I jumped that deer or not, I'm not sure. But I was on the north side then. So I was probably, 500 yards from the road from where I'd parked the truck. Well, I pulled my binoculars up and I thought I seen a big rub line. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to have to walk down in there. So I did. I seen a rub line in my binoculars. I walked down in, and the sign just kept getting better and better and more. I don't know if it was so fresh that it was, he had just left it because it was just tore up in there. And finally I come to a spot where it was probably a quarter of the way up from where the hill starts, and there was like a heavy, it could have been man-made, I'm not sure, but there was a bench there, and I hunt a lot of stuff that real similar to what you hunt. Like, it's a lot of old reclaimed mine shit. I'm like, son of a bitch, here it is. This has to be his bed. There's a big bed there. There's 4 or 5 giant rubs real close to where that was. And, I said, okay, well, I'm going to hunt this, and son of a bitch. So the day after, I went in around, it was probably like 12:30 or so, and I said, I'm going to hang right here. I found a good spot, had a tree marked. I went in, and I should have got there a little bit earlier, I guess, because I got halfway up the tree, and what do you think happened?
Yep.
Here he comes. And I just wasn't, there was nothing I could do. He kind of seen me. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
really ready. I had shit hanging off of me, and I just tried to pull my bow up, and I was ready, but he just knew something was up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, but it's one of them things like, I just kind of got complacent on the one spot that I was looking at because I knew they were moving through there. When realistically,
Mm-hmm.
all I had to do was probably walk honestly, probably another 1,000 yards, 800 yards on the other side of the road, and I probably would have been on that deer in a better location. But you don't,
Lessons learned.
yeah, lessons learned, man. Lessons learned, and
I got a pretty good example for lessons learned this past season. I went back down into Scrape City, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 days after I hit that buck. I was getting a lot of camera action, a lot of cell phone camera action in there. Like, even the day after I was in there searching for that buck. I actually looked for that buck for like 3 days. Couldn't find him.
mm-hmm.
So, the whole time I'm still getting action on my cameras, on my scrape cameras. So I'm like, all right, I'm going back down in there. Screw it. So I go back down in there, and it's about 11 o'clock. I get into a spot. I moved maybe about 150 yards from my original shot, and 150 yards. I get in this tree, and I notice as I get up higher, all the shitty black gum trees that are there have like a million, branches. I can't get up high because the higher I go, the less shots I have, to no shots.
Mm-hmm.
So my stand height is 6.5 feet.
Okay.
In a tree that's big enough to hide my outline, to conceal my outline, and I have big giant patches of laurels all around me. So I got good breakup. And I get all my stuff together. I hang my bow, put my release on the freaking D-loop, put the arrow on the knot, or knock the arrow on the string. And literally, as soon as I did that, I just looked up the ridge, and here he comes down. It's that same one that I forgot my release on. I'm like, oh, you're toast. And he's coming down, and he hits this trail that's going to take him 8 yards from me. 8 yards. I'm like, if I smoke him at 8 yards from 6 feet up, I'm going to do a backflip out of the stand. I'm like, he's toast. He has no clue I'm here. I have super, super good breakup. So it was breezy too, and the wind was in my face. I'm like, done deal. He's murked. So he's coming down, and he slows up once he hits the flat. And he's just like slowly meandering through, and he's at 35 yards now. And I have a laurel brush between me and him, but I could see him still very well. And sure enough, he steps out on the other side of that laurel brush and immediately does like a backflip and starts, just completely cartwheels, goes to the base of the freaking ridge, and then just starts walking away. I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
Oh,
and the wind was still in my face, still in my favor the whole freaking time. I could feel it in my face. I'm like, there was no swirl. There's no distinct land features that would cause it to do that. No water, no boulders or anything that would draw thermals. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I'm messaging all my friends, and they're giving me every reason in the book what it could have been. I'm like, and I'm eliminate those reasons. And I'm like, what is it? And I look down, the fucking backpack straps from my freaking lone wolf were twisting and twirling in the wind.
Oh boy. Yep.
So that unnatural movement freaked him out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the only thing that's plausible in my mind. I didn't wrap them up, amongst the stand.
Yep. Fuck, man.
So
I've been there.
Lesson learned.
I have been there, and I learned my lesson the hard way. Luckily, it wasn't a big buck that got me on that, but I never thought of that. And I had a small buck come in, and I was 18 feet, and he looked, and he just pegged me, and I'm like, what? How? I was above him, where he was kind of on a bench, and I was above him, and it was, sunny out. I didn't figure it to be the thermals or anything. And I'm like, how the hell did he see me? And, what I did was I left the stand up and I got down and I looked up. And as soon as I got down, I said, oh, I mean, there it is,
Yep.
So what I started doing, what I do is I carry them like the rubbers twist ties.
The gear ties.
The gear tie. Yep. Yep.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. And I just wrap them up to the backside of where the teeth are, and yeah, I learned my lesson on that one too, man. That sucks. That like that's like you laid everything on the line. Everything's all systems go, right? You flipped all the switches. Check, 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 and then like something
like that.
Yeah. Oh man, that's
Yeah.
that's tough.
It was.
I'll tell you, and I'll make this quick. This year, what happened to me was archery season. My dad and I were in Ohio. We have a spot that we call Old Faithful in the one area, and he loves hunting in there. And he shot a buck the first day that we were in there. I seen a nice 10-point. He was moving too fast. I just couldn't get him to stop or really get a good draw on him. And I sat there all day, and I didn't see another deer all day. And I said, I'm just gonna go there again in the morning. Went in the morning. Nothing, 1 o'clock, something just told me like, just get aggressive. Screw this, And so I did, and I found a really good spot. I put some miles on with my my gear, and I found a spot. I found a big rub on a point where it was kind of flat, and I kind of figured like, there's got to be a big buck moving through here. This point sounded kind of secluded, the doe bedding has got to be on this little saddle that's down in below here. I think I can catch him moving through here, and it just didn't feel right. I said, you know what? I'm going to go hunt the same freaking spot that my dad shot that buck. And some people would be like, "Oh, you're crazy," like he shot that deer and he gutted it in there and all that shit. And
depending on the time of the year, all bets are fucking off.
Right, right, and I'm talking. This is the 6th, 7th of November is about when it was.
Yeah, all bets are off at that point in time.
Right. And the reason why I wanted to go back there so bad was because when he likes to hunt ladder stands. So we have like a one that's not very heavy. I lug it in wherever he wants it. We hang that sumbitch up, and he's a straight killer. I mean, he just kills shit. So. Yeah. We went in to hang that stand up. It was just polluted with sign. I mean, everything was just rubbed up, broken off. I mean, aggressive shit. You know what I mean? So I knew they were running it. There's a bench system there, and there's like a real good, kind of like it hog backs out, and they come up out of this hill, and it's super steep. But where they can come up, it's like the only spot that's not that hard for them to come up over the hill.
Yeah.
And so he shot that buck in there, whatever. I didn't give a shit. I said, whatever. I said, I'm going up there. He's like, oh, I'm surprised you want to go there. I said, I'm just going to go in there and hang and hunt the evening, and then I'm going to go in there and hunt in the morning. I'm thinking that evening's kind of shot already. It was like 3:30. It was that time of the year was getting dark at like 6 or so. Yeah. 6:30, whatever it was. So, like, not a lot of time for me to walk in, get up in the tree, all that stuff. Now, granted, we all know it only takes a couple seconds, but I got in there. There's a big beech tree, and he was hunting right beside the beech tree. Well, this beech tree's got a whole shit ton of limbs the whole way to the bottom of it, And so what I did is I walked down past that, and there was another beech tree there, but I could get into the tree beside the beech tree, and there wasn't a whole bunch of limbs below it. Well, I was afraid the deer was going to come up closer to where I was going to walk down. So I was like, wow, all the signs up there, I don't want to go down that far. So what happened was I walked about 15 yards past the tree that I originally picked to hunt when I walked in. Yeah. So then I was like, fuck it, I'll walk back. So I walked back up. I climbed the tree that I first picked. I literally pulled my bow up, and I turned my head, and I'm like, son of a bitch, here he comes. I get my release on. I'm like, oh, that's a nice 8-point. About 125-inch 8-point. It's a nice deer. Yeah. And dude, he come in on a, just on a line. I mean, he was coming right in. I would have shot that deer 10 yards, but he had to take a couple more steps to get past that beech tree limb. And I might have been able to fandangle my body a little bit maybe and try to squeeze one off right before that. But, I'm thinking there's the opening. All you got to do is step into that and he's dead. And you know what that deer did? That son of a bitch, he caught my ground scent like it was nobody's business. And I wasn't even
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it when he come in, I just
Yep.
was like, oh, it's going to happen. And then when he hit it, I knew what happened immediately. And, I thought about it and I'm like, I don't, it's been like, I don't know. I quit wearing like the rubber boots probably a couple years ago just because of how many miles I put on
Yeah.
and how mobile I am.
Mm-hmm.
I ran those Muck Pursuit boots for a long time, and
Yeah.
they're like super light. They're rubber boots, but my feet don't really like not having laces. Like that
Mm.
kind of like a heel lock system in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that.
So I said, I should have tried something. I should have, tried to put some freaking deer dander. I've heard of guys putting smoke on
That,
their, I don't know.
listen. What I do with my boots, that's religious. Some may think it's stupid, but I've seen deer walk right over my tracks. I had friends witness it as well. I use deer dander on my pant legs, King Fitzgerald deer dander.
Mm-hmm.
I use that on my pant legs all the way down to the tops of my boots. And then I go ahead and I use Evercalm on the sides of my boots where the rubber comes up and meets the leather.
Mm-hmm.
I use that there and on the sole of my boot.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not that can completely cover up my scent, I don't think so. Deer can smell like 6 different scents at once.
Oh yeah.
I think of it like we smell pizza, the deer smelling the ingredients, the particular ingredient. That's how I think of it as. And I think maybe you can drown out your scent just enough to confuse them or make them think, okay, well, it smells like there is a deer here. Was it here? But there was also somebody else here. There was also, human scent, foreign scent, whatever it is, scent that makes me nervous. But I don't know how old it is.
Yep.
And there's fresher deer scent here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's how I'm thinking in my mind. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it gives me confidence in using it, so that's why I use it.
Yeah. No, I have the Evercalm stuff, and I have gone that route, and I probably I may have even had it in my truck, to use, and I was moving around like that, and I'm like, man, just it sucks, because I'm just like you. We put so much time in for that one moment that when it doesn't happen, you're like, son of a bitch. But you learn, and that's what we're talking about,
Yeah. I told so many people this year. Like I said, I had 7 encounters with monsters where it was just like you die a little inside,
Yeah.
Because, like you said, you pour your heart and soul into it, thousands of miles and hours and doing this, and it's just like, that moment comes up and it doesn't work out, and it's just like that little piece of you breaks off.
Yeah.
But, to me, that's what keeps me coming back for more.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, man, that's if it wasn't hard, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't be sitting here on a podcast, and we wouldn't be so freaking excited talking about it.
Exactly.
I do want to circle back to one thing you mentioned earlier. You said you called that one spot Scrape City, and can you kind of paint that picture, what that kind of looks like?
Scrape City is a spot that has upwards of 20 some odd scrapes in, I think it's like 130 acre area. It's just like a really confined area with, like I said, over 20 scrapes. We'll just put it that way. And most of them are actually in like a way smaller area than that. Maybe 300 yards wide. There's the majority of the scrapes, and they're all big scrapes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in my particular opinion, it's also at the start of a spring. That spring only wells up when there's a shit ton of rain. But for the most part, it's usually dry. But I believe, and my buddy Tim agrees with me, that particular area is where multiple mature bucks, like core areas, kind of like overlap. That's why we were seeing so many shooters in that particular area. That actual Big 8 that I had 2 encounters with, he was running off bucks with bigger racks out of that area. He's the bully buck. That's what I've been calling him, because he actually broke off the rack of a 6.5-year-old buck I was after that ended up getting shot in rifle season. But Scrape City is probably one of my better spots. As far as, let's see, feed-wise, there's oaks there. There's lots of black gum, which are pretty much useless. But it's a natural flat with lots of herbaceous layer there. There's lots of digging around where they're getting a lot of the herbaceous layer, eating that up. This year, like I said, there's a lot of acorns and greenbrier. That's abound throughout the whole region, like barbed wire. I think what else? Yeah, that's about it. I mean, it's a bench coming down into, or it's just a bench that a spring rolls up at, and for some reason they just scrape the shit out of the area. I've never seen that many scrapes in a collective area before.
Now, what are most of the scrapes underneath, like the tree selection that they have? Is it pretty much the same types of trees, or
laurel?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Freaking laurel. There's one scrape that's actually under an oak tree, an overhanging branch in a briar, not a briar, but a blueberry, like an open area of blueberry where it's real thick up to your like freaking waist.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like this one lone oak tree out in the middle of this blueberry field, and it's just freaking scrape under it, big giant scrape right under it. And but the rest of it's all laurel. And my buddy Tim mentioned, I goes, I don't understand why they're scraping under that. Well, it's the only fucking thing that they can.
Right.
So
you know what, that makes sense though. I mean, I know for my area, if I see a beech tree kind of tucked away, like in the middle of an opening or something, yeah, I'm running to it. I know that.
Same thing here. We get the odd beech tree. I can see that beech tree. I'd be like, I know there's a scrape there, and I guarantee you there's probably tine marks in the trunk.
Yep.
I don't know why they're a fucking magnet.
Yeah, they love them. And I've kind of put two and two together with those, and I've thought of countless hours in a tree stand thinking, why would they scrape under this? And one reason I come up with is they hold their leaves pretty long throughout the year.
They do eat the leaves and whatnot, so they hold it longer.
Right. That makes sense with that laurel though. You know what I mean? That stuff. I mean, that'll hold some of them leaves year round.
They'll eat laurel if it's like
right
desperate times for desperate measures. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I don't know. Maybe it's the only thing that they have opportunities to rub on, to leave their scent on, to scrape, make liquor branches. But that's what the majority of the scrapes I'm finding are under. So, like I said, I try to think about why, but you can only go down that rabbit hole so far when you just say, fuck it, I'm going to just make plans on it.
Yeah, that's for sure, man. That's pretty cool, though. I've seen that a couple times, I'm not going to say that's something that I've never seen. It's just for that many in one area, Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I would say I agree with you. It's probably they don't have anything else to be leaving their scent on, so that's what's getting it. But
if you find a hemlock, there's probably going to be a scrape under it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't find scrapes under too many other like pine tree type pines,
mm-hmm.
conifers. I find them mainly under hemlocks.
Yeah. Same.
Other than laurel.
Yep. Yeah. They're their own animal, like it's so funny because like a lot of the animals like on my private ground, they just, if there's sumac trees, they just maul them. I mean, they just maul the shit out of them. And I think it's because they're soft,
Could be, yeah.
And I think that might feel a little bit better, like getting their velvet off and stuff. And then once they have their velvet off, they already have that scent on there, so they just keep nailing it.
Could be. Very well could be. Most of the rubs I find up here are on hemlock.
Yeah.
Again, same thing. Hemlocks.
Mm.
And where do you find hemlocks? Usually near water.
Yep. Bottoms and yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're probably thermal hub areas and everything, I mean, they're probably mauled up. But yeah, man, we're back to what we were saying with silver linings and stuff. I have to say, the other things that I've learned a lot about in failure is just how to I guess, gather myself when that moment's coming around, you know.
Hmm.
'Cause I can honestly say, man, shit, like some of the deer that I killed, and I know I've talked to other people and they're like, yeah, same here. Like, I just don't even remember how it went down. Like, they come in, you pull your bow back, and you're like, I can't remember squeezing off and watching it happen. It's like the adrenaline rush was just so much at that moment. Like, it's like you just blacked out. Like,
I mean, I used to experiment. I'm not trying to sound like fucking egotistical or cocky or anything like that. When I first started bow hunting, I was exactly like that. Like I shoot at a deer and my dad's like, "Well, did you hit it?" I don't know. I don't remember anything.
right,
You know.
yeah.
And my buddy Luke just had that happen, not this past season, but the season before. First day he was out, he shoots at a giant and he can't remember specifics of the shot. I mean, I get that. You know, the adrenaline rush, everything is just boom. It just clouds your brain.
Yeah.
I remember everything like now, because I was a kid, I missed a fuck ton, so it was just like I got that out of my system. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's straight business.
Yeah.
I do know one thing: I need to settle down and start aiming low. I have to aim at the bottom of the heart every time, the lowest killing point, because these deer, you know, when I'm up close and in person with them, you know, if I have to stop them, they're already on edge. So I can't let one duck me again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the second time this has happened in, you know, probably 10 years. I can't let that happen again. So it's definitely going to be a lot more practice, a lot more concentration, and calming myself down for when the moment of truth happens.
Yeah, man. I have had giant deer, two separate occasions, giant deer duck my arrows, and that's, you don't think. I mean, I know, like you said, the one, he was probably only 15 yards from me. I watched him duck
Mm-hmm.
it, and I'm like, what the fuck? What happened? Like, how did that happen? Well, one thing was I stopped him. And when I
Mm-hmm.
stopped him, I mean, he didn't look at me. He was looking through me. But, you know, I mean, at that moment, I should have, you know, like you said, there it is. I should have aimed low. I should have known better, you know? And
Yep.
we got really lucky. I actually missed that deer, and that deer, my dad and I were only hunting about 300 yards apart. He actually shot that deer right after I missed it. Um, but I mean, how many times that happened? I probably never again. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's once again though. I'm sitting here, we're talking about it, and I'm like, you know, I know what I can do moving forward. I know how I can go about being better on that, and we can
It's
sit here,
all.
right, and we can talk about it. And like you said, you can tell me, hey, you know, here's what I do to help breathe during the shot or try to calm myself or whatever. But like if I'm a new green hunter, just like your friend or whoever else, like
Yep.
until they do it, like you can tell them that, but they're not really gonna grasp what you're saying until it happens,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're gonna
Yeah.
be like, oh yeah, I see exactly what you mean.
It's all gonna click then. Yes.
Yeah, so some of them are kind of like the intangibles. They're kind of unteachable, if you will. And, you know, we like to sit here and talk on the podcast, and we hope that people can gather and take some sort of value from it. But at the same time, like, we're
Until you experience it, you know, you won't really fully grasp it.
right, right. So it's a great topic to talk about, man. But um, moving forward in our conversation a little bit, you know, I do want you to talk about what you do for your mock scrapes, right? Like, what does that look like when you go in? Here's a spot. You think that, hey, you know, I might want to put a mock scrape here, or maybe there's an existing scrape and you want to freshen it up with your own stuff. Kind of give me the rundown on what your process is.
Okay, so when I first started getting in the whole scrape things, I was making mock scrapes. I had some success with them. You know, I killed a buck over a mock scrape. Um, I will tell you, I kind of drifted away from mock scrapes. Now, the only time I will make a mock scrape nowadays is if I know a buck is using a specific bedding area.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, they could have several bedding areas, and especially in where I'm hunting, it's tough because they're like, oh, well, we find the security cover. The whole mountain is the security cover.
Mm-hmm.
All right. There's no specific bed to feeding pattern simply because there's no agriculture in the vicinity. So they're just getting up, browsing around, eating whatever's available, whether it be acorns, whether it be their base layer, whether it be witch hazel or greenbrier. There's food everywhere. So there's no direct pattern to going to food and then back to bed.
Right.
So they can pretty much plop down wherever they want. And I've seen that, just randomly, seen the buck just randomly, just there's no reason for him to bed there. There's no real tactical advantage except for, the wind was blowing that direction at that point. There are, topographical features you can start look for. Then you can okay, they may favor this bedding area, but they'll have 3 or 4 of those spots along that ridge. So if I know there's one specifically using those areas, I will put a mock scrape where I know the wind will push that and thermals will carry that into his face. So that's kind of drawing him out. It's just going to, that smell, that scent is of another mystery buck that he doesn't know is going to keep whacking him in the face.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like to do the last couple of years, I really honed in on overmarking scrapes. I'll find these big existing scrapes, and they don't even have to be big sometimes. One of my best producing scrapes is maybe about 3 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that big, but I have multiple mature bucks coming to it. And I will go ahead and wear rubber gloves. I make myself a new looking branch, or I'll just take the existing one. I get twine. I wrap it around that branch, and then I use Smokies deer lures. I don't really like synthetics because you don't know what's in it. What's in it may not be legal. So I know he has a patented natural preorbital gland that he gets from the deer. He told me about the process, how he goes about extracting it, and so on and so forth. So I know what I'm using. So I use the preorbital gland on one little tiny on the licking branch on one twine ball, and then I'll put another one on a adjacent branch, and I'll put forehead gland scent in there, because when you're looking at a buck, watching him work the branch, he's rubbing his face all in there. So he's getting preorbital scent in there, and he's also getting forehead gland scent in there.
Mm-hmm.
Then, when he's pawing at the dirt, interdigital gland, there's a gland between the toes of the hoof, right there. Every time he's hitting that ground, interdigital gland scent's being deposited. And if it's a sexy time, period in October, I'll start adding tarsal gland to it to get a reaction. So, like I said, I will overmark scrapes more often than not.
Yeah.
So I find if you think about it, the buck's coming by, he knows who's ever using that scrape. He knows, okay, I smell this deer, I can put that to that deer. He knows all the deer in the area. He's seen them, he smelled them, he knows whose scent that is in that scrape. You go ahead and come along with your scents. You're adding an imaginary buck to that picture. Mm-hmm. You're adding a mystery buck. He's going to be like, who the hell is this? Mm-hmm. All right, now I'm going to start coming to this spot a little bit more.
Right.
Just because I want to know who this is. This is making me curious, and it's making me pissed. Mm-hmm. So even if that detracts him another extra 5 minutes out of the day, that's that extra 5 minutes you may need to put one through him.
Yep. That's the game, brother. It's a lot of fun, though, doing what you're doing. That's what I like to do, is not so much make a new scrape, right? But like you said, overmark them and really, really piss them off, I mean, I have a pretty good story and pictures one year. I would go back once a week, and I was just working this buck just because I was having fun with it. And it wasn't real far from the road, so I could go in, and it's not usually something I do is go and play with something like that, but I just had this deer, every time I went in, he would get there earlier and earlier and earlier.
And that's an educational moment right there. Like you said, you may not necessarily be hunting it, but you can learn from it.
Yes, exactly. You can learn a lot if you know what you're doing. And actually, as hard as it is and as much as it sucks, for time-wise, some of my cameras I run on video mode just because I like to watch, their body language and how they're acting in a certain area, or even which direction they're coming in. You know what I mean?
Agreed. I think if you're in a really hot spot with scrapes and you don't have it on video mode, I think you're fucking up.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like you said, and you can really, it's funny, but you can watch the body language on a deer and kind of know what their MO is, what their demeanor is.
What the demeanor is, because every deer is individually different.
Yeah.
I mean, I have one that I've been after for quite a few years called the berserker buck. His MO is that he will break shit off. Like every licking branch I make, he snaps it right off.
Yeah.
And then I just go back in and tie it right back on, and I'll add. The one time I went in there and he smashed 4 of my scrapes with my cameras over it, watching. He tore the licking branches right off. So I went in there, retied the licking branch up, re-scented it up, and then I added parcel this time. And the biggest scrape, every tree, every little sapling that was in a 20-yard radius was either snapped off or just tore to shit. So I'm like, okay, he's an aggressive buck. He's probably King Dick in the area.
Yeah, I mean,
so.
and you know, the other thing is that's the kind of buck that, you know, you get in a situation where, at least for me, like I'm not one to go and grab my grunt call much. I mean, that's for me, usually my grunts, it's desperation. Like that animal's moving away from me. I feel like I don't have another chance, or, you know, like it's crunch time or whatnot. Like I'm going to go for it, and because I have scared a lot of bucks. You know, in Pennsylvania, I wanna say that because you know, when I go out to Ohio or I'm in Indiana or something, oh no, that's a whole different ball game. But
I see where you're getting at, because then, like, by watching their reactions, seeing their demeanor, you know, realize what kind of buck they are. You can go ahead and be confident with pulling your grunt call and calling that deer, because you know what kind of attitude he has.
Yep, more than likely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, as far as calling goes, I rely on the freaking bleed can a lot.
Oh yeah, me
too.
And
in conjunction with my grunt calls, I do a call sequence where I'll hit the bleed can several times, and then on the third time I do a stutter bleed. I'll shake the can, where it just does that like that, and immediately afterwards I'll hit it with tendon grunts.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of success with that, a lot of success over the years. And I've had friends that texted me this past season, you know, I'm not seeing much. What should I do? I told 2 guys, I can give you their names, and they'll tell you within 10 minutes of doing just a blind call sequence the way I told them to do it, they had bucks come in.
Yep.
So it's you really got to pay attention to that deer too when he's coming in. What's his body language telling you? Like you said, you wait until it's like desperation.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of guys will just keep blowing the same fucking grunt at this deer, and you got to pay attention. If his ears are facing towards you, he doesn't necessarily need to be looking at you, but if he's walking and you're grunting at him, and one of those ears is directed towards you, he heard you. He just doesn't give a shit.
Right.
You know, maybe try that stutter bleed. That may pique his interest.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like I said, a lot of people make the mistake with calling. They have a mature buck grunt call or the buck roar.
Right.
Pennsylvania, come on, sound beatable.
Right.
You want to be like the little pipsqueak satellite buck that's trying to swoon one of these big bastards ladies. Mm-hmm. He wants to just rush you right the hell off. So you don't want to sound like another giant mature buck, you know?
Yep.
Just sound beatable. I've had more success with that than the opposite.
Yep. Same, man. Same. Yeah, I go for the same thing. You know, when I use my bleat, I'm the same as you. That sequence is super similar. I have tried and went with doing tendon grunts. I don't, like I said, I don't do it all the time. Usually it's a desperation when I reach for the grunt. But as far as that bleat can, I can attest. I mean, I have 3 deer, for sure, 3 deer on my wall that the bleat can, it killed them. I mean, it changed the trajectory of where the deer was going. You know, I had one totally walk right by me. You know, he's 60 yards away from me. I started bleating. I did a couple half bleats, like you said, kind of just changing it up and just making it sound different, you know. And I mean, he turned, come right back in. I mean, the rest is history. But yeah, I'm big on the bleat can. I love it, man. I think it's foolproof too.
There's little tips and tweaks you can use to it. I've used it where I put it behind my back, or I put it in my pocket and tip it to make it sound duller, so he's not pinpointing exactly where I'm at, because they're very good at that.
Oh yeah.
Especially if they're within 40 yards. I'll put the bleat can in my back pocket and set it off. That way, it seems like the deer's moving further away, so he's looking past you rather than in your specific area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to say they're looking through you.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. But yeah, and you see, I mean, there's plenty of good stuff we're covering here, man. I'm really liking where we're at here.
yeah.
But you know, the scrape life it's a lot of fun. You get a lot of inventory.
Hmm.
Um, I know what I like to do for like the last week of October is if I'm being mobile, if I can find a hot scrape and I know like there's good sign in that area, like there's, here's a nice tall rub. Like I'm going to
Hmm.
hunt where I think that deer is probably going to try to work that scrape in that area. I'm not going to hunt maybe right over the scrape, right? Not like 25, 30 yards from the scrape or whatnot, but if it looks like, hey, he might swing around and try to J hook this area right here because he could be bedded over here on his hillside or something like that, then
Yeah,
I'm gonna if it's nice, fresh, and there's a big rub nearby, I don't think too much about it. I'm hunting it.
yeah. When you go into an area and if you see that dirt is still dark and black, and you just gotta say, screw it, I'm hunting here.
Yep.
You hunt the hot sign.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
it, with areas like Scrape City, though, it was just I just try to, you know, throw Hail Marys with the wind because traditionally it's a northwest wind, so I tried to hunt a northwest or any north based or south based wind because a lot of the travel there was east west.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's bound to swirl at some point in time in those areas, and I just cross my fingers. I don't try to I didn't think too hard about J hooking and everything else because there's so many scrapes in the area. Which one is he going to particularly hit? You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's a crapshoot at that point in time.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's what I was saying before about like being aggressive too, because I know guys. It's wild to me, man. Like they'll sit on the couch because like, oh no, I have to have a southwest wind to hunt that spot.
nope, screw it. Get out there and go.
I'm
Like even if
It's crazy.
yeah, you have to freaking make stuff happen. You have to make opportunities happen. You
Yeah.
just can't wait till it falls in your lap. Like I said, this year I went out after him. I made these plans and went in after him. Whereas before years past, I would just like wait on the outskirts. Maybe just inventory scrapes rather than going right down in deep into the rut scrapes right off the bat. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yep.
This year I changed it up and I obviously had a lot more success. I didn't kill one, but again, I had the best season I've had in 25 years of bow hunting, and I didn't kill, but it was still amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I personally, yeah. Okay. The wind is the wind, but I'll tell you right now, if the wind's single digits, I'm taking the thermals all day over the wind, all day.
Absolutely.
I don't even think about it. If it's under 10 mile per hour, I'm hunting the thermals. So, I mean, I think you and I might be in a little different situation than some people because of the type of terrain that we're hunting, though, too.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Because these thermals they're super unforgiving, and they're super.
Yeah,
Once you
it's
once
tough.
you have them figured out, though, too, you can really, I mean, really excel.
Yeah, and like I said, in this area, I don't know if you have them, but there's a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of reclaimed land ground. Stuff that was done in the like late early 1900s,
Hmm.
where there was the whole land was just completely raped, no trees whatsoever.
Right, right.
And now what's left is overgrown culm banks. You got pits, you got trenches, you got stripping pits, you got these little pock holes that thermals and winds, they do fucking parkour off these things. And the deer like to be up on top of them stripping banks too, those overgrown culm banks.
Hmm.
And because they can see down in it, all these little pits and all these little, little
Hmm.
flats. They
Yeah.
have a tactical advantage on it. They're playing hide and seek. It sucks. But that's why they're there, and that's why there's some of the biggest bucks are, roaming around in those areas.
Yep. I mean, it's the same exact terrain here, man. It's honest to God, like and you see them old pictures, man. It's
Hmm.
like you were saying. I'd like to know what the wind felt like back in the day. It's like the Midwest. It had to have been because it was like the fucking Lorax come through and just cut everything.
Oh,
They're,
absolutely. That's just for just paper mills and for building and burning firewood and everything else.
yeah.
And mining. Then the mining industry came in, raped the land, and it was just You know, the shit. At one point in time, there were no deer. I think it was like 1926. They were freaking training deer in. They were bringing deer in by train to restock them.
Yep.
So, you
Funny.
know, Pennsylvania doesn't even have any really technically natural Pennsylvania native deer. They're from freaking multiple different states to restock the state because it was just that beat down.
That's funny you say that, man, because literally the last podcast I did, I brought that up, and he was a little bit younger than us and kind of educated him on that. And yeah, it's a wild thing, man. They had him eradicated here, and it's crazy to know that. But um, you know, let's move forward onto a couple different other topics.
Sure.
You know, one thing I want to cover real quick, and you and I always bullshit about it, but um, you know, I kind of want to get into your feelings on, you know, what the hell this hunting industry has turned into. I don't want to get real deep on it, but I think that you have some really good points to make, and I want to get them out there for everybody.
I feel that the hunting industry ruined TV by creating just unrealistic expectations of what hunting is and throwing out unrealistic situations on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people were just killing for kills, and you know, with all the freaking poaching cases coming out and everything else, that was evidence. That was evident. That's all it was about. Putting kills on camera to get money, this, that, and the other, get people to buy these products. It was a big thing. So everybody started drifting away from that, and they went into YouTube land and social media.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, more people were starting to relate that with these, you know, average Joes going out there filming their kills and their hunts and whatnot. And then the industry saw that and said, we could capitalize on that. We could give these people promo codes and, you know, field staff positions and this, that, and the other. And, you know, we can make it seem like, hey, even you can get in on this and be a professional hunter, this, that, and the other. So everybody all of a sudden wanted to be famous, you know?
Yep.
And everybody's hunting for likes. They're hunting for likes. They're hunting for follows. They're hunting for everything but themselves. And it's kind of like soured hunting a little bit, you know? And what I don't like is a lot of these guys that are out there making it seem like I can hunt like this, that, and the other, and they're hunting for clout. And that gives a lot of bad vibes and a bad image of hunters because, in my opinion, you have some of these guys, young and influential kids coming up, and they see that, or you got fence sitters, guys that want to try and get into hunting, but are kind of like, nah, I don't know. And then they see guys like that, and they're like, well, that guy's a total Chad. He's a rod. I don't want to deal with people like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They may sway them away from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, you know, it's definitely a crazy thing now. It's just, it's sad. I mean,
you know, one example I'll make real quick is they just had that buckshot in Ohio, that monster deer. I don't know if you've seen it or not. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I can't think of the kid's name. But
I know it when you're talking about. I don't want to say it because I made posts about it and it was taken down due to harassment.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So.
But that's just a good example of what happened. You know, I don't think that he was found guilty or anything like that. So I don't want to.
Not yet. But.
Right. But yeah, from what I read, the signs aren't very good. But
it puts pressure on people to do stupid shit to get famous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I have to go ahead and just kill a buck at any cost just so people fucking know who I am or like me.
Mm-hmm.
No, I did this thing just to, back in 2020 when I started this, it was to showcase me and my fucking idiot friends that are goofballs, show that we're serious hunters, but we don't take ourselves seriously.
Right.
And we use it as a bragging board to celebrate everybody else's success in our area.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody to come together and enjoy it. And like, you know, it's crazy. That's the only thing I could say. I could go on and on and on about it, but you know, those are my feelings on it. That it's putting a lot of pressure on people to hunt not for themselves.
Right. Yeah, it's unhealthy. It doesn't look good. The amount of people that are out there just to get clout is kind of wild to me. some of the other stuff is like how gullible a lot of people are. We
Yeah.
were talking about like just because you have a video of you talking about how this deer should be moving through there, or you have a podcast, or you have a any other sense of social media or whatnot, like, and just the way I see some people eat it up, and I'm like, that's probably just regurgitated information, and that guy has no idea like how to
Exactly.
actually.
You can, when you start seeing people, when you start hearing and seeing people say, this deer is going to do this, this, and this, I kind of tune myself out.
Mm,
I just,
right.
because there's no absolute in hunting
Mm-hmm.
ever. You can make the best plan ever, and that deer could just simply. There's so many things that could happen that you can't predict what a deer's going to do. They could catch a scent from another hunter or a coyote or a bear or whatever. Anything could freak them out. You can't say this is what this deer's going to do. It's possible that deer could do that, but when you start hearing these guys that have their own shit and saying that this is what's going to happen, okay, sure,
Right.
but I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't get me all worked up, man. I'm you know,
Oh shit. No, well, you're easy to work up, so.
yeah, I was fully expecting to get punched in the face at the sportsman show, but that didn't happen.
Oh shit. I mean, I wish I'd have been there to see it if it did happen, so I could see who did it. But um, yeah, it sounds like a good time. But yeah, man, it sucks. But for everybody listening, we do want you guys to know that there are down to earth people out there that you guys can reach out to. Like, I'll gladly answer any questions you have. If I don't know how to answer your question, I do know some people that can probably answer your question.
And same here, absolutely. Listen. I may not have a success story for your question, but I'll have a fuck up story that may answer that
It's a
question.
good point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Right. Never, and that never happened to me as a win, but here's how I lost, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If when people ask me about stuff, I do my best to say, okay, well, I don't have the experience of succeeding in that, but I did screw up here, here, and here. Like, I learned from my mistakes. And like I've always said, I've always screwed up more than I succeed.
Hmm.
But I'm willing to admit that, whereas people nowadays kind of shy away from that.
Oh yeah. You'd be surprised how many people, I bring up wounding a deer, and it's like
Ugh.
everybody has to turn their head and poke their ears and walk away, and I'm like, listen, this is part of what goes on. Okay, you might not want to hear about it. You might not want to, talk about it, but we're gonna talk about it.
Listen, if you don't, if you've been hunting long enough, those things are going to happen. Those X factors are going to happen. You hunt long enough, you're going to have bad shots. You're going to wound deer. You're going to not recover deer. It happens.
Yep.
If you say it doesn't happen, you've either not hunted long enough or you're fucking lying.
Yeah.
I'm just going to flat out say that. You're bullshitting.
I agree.
So,
I agree.
And this one comment I heard recently was, I've shot so many big bucks, I don't remember all the details to everyone. Bullshit. Fuck you.
Yeah, I would have to say the same thing, man. There's just no way. I I'll tell you right now, my dad has shot a lot of large, mature bucks, and I'm telling you, I guarantee you he can tell you exactly how each one went down and where it was, how it happened, every single little detail of it. Guarantee it.
My dad has shot a lot of deer. He's not shot a lot of big ones. In fact, he's probably never shot a big one. He's shot a lot of 2.5 and 3.5-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been getting bigger as the years go.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, he kind of detracted and shot a tiny one. But whatever, his tag, his hunt. But he can tell you the details, a lot of them hunts. And he's been bow hunting since the 60s.
Yeah.
And he can tell you details about all the ones he screwed up with. It was a very, very fine detail.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody to say, oh, I've shot so many big bucks, eat me.
Right.
Raw.
Yep. No, I feel you 100%. I stand behind that. That's.
And I had that conversation with Ryan Glitzky, Moose Glitzky, and
Mm-hmm.
I said this guy went ahead and said this, and he goes, well, I call bullshit on that. And Moose's resume speaks for himself, and he remembers every detail of his hunt. So there you go.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry for name dropping you, Moose.
Yeah, well, yeah, don't worry. He's a friend of the show. I'm sure he'll be listening to
Oh,
this.
I love him. He's a good dude.
Yeah, really good guy. Great listener, and he's always available to answer questions. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. Another down to earth guy. Like you said, there's tons of us out there that are willing to just, answer your questions without saying how great we are.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I can promise you I'm not great. I mean,
I
this year,
suck.
yeah, this year, hey, archery season, I didn't kill nothing.
Yeah.
I got the boomstick out and the game changed and I could shoot him for further than 40 yards. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the difference in what happened for everything. So,
Listen, I saw 2 deer in rifle season. That's it.
yeah.
And I missed them multiple times. So there goes to show you,
Yeah.
I'm just, you're run of the mill hunter. So
Yeah, same man, same. But a couple more things before we wrap her up, man. So you've been a Pennsylvania resident all your life. You know how things work. You know how things are. This thing's shitty. This thing's cool. So what are some things that you think here in Pennsylvania that we do really well? And on the flip side of that, what are some things that you think that we could take a step back and be like, hey, like maybe we should look at this because this is stupid.
so as far as things we do well, I mean, the management program. A lot of people disagree with it. That's, to me, you're ignorant. Like, look what's happened. Look what Gary Alt implemented, and look what we've become. We're shooting really big deer every year.
Yeah.
Big bucks are coming out of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's not laughed at anymore when it comes onto the scale of, shooting nice bucks. It's come leaps and bounds. And the management, like I said, the restrictions, and people are starting to really get this whole idea of, okay, that's a basket buck. Maybe I'll let it go.
Mm-hmm.
It's infectious, that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
And again, it's your tag, your hunt.
Yeah.
I don't care if you shoot that basket buck. I'd applaud you if you shot that basket buck.
Mm-hmm.
But you see people pass out, and that's how we're getting bigger and bigger deer. Plus, you have guys that are starting to see the light on buck-doe ratio. There's still a lot out there that don't get that.
Right.
But we do need to shoot the does off in order to bring the buck-doe ratio balance up. People don't get – you get questions every year. Why am I seeing a fawn with spots in October? Well, keep burning them doe tags or refusing to shoot does, you're going to have that.
Yep.
Those fawns get dropped late because those mothers were bred late. And then those fawns won't reach 75 pounds in estrus cycle until late, and then the cycle just keeps going over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So, that's, the management system is coming around and is getting better. So I really like that. I also think that forestry and the game commission don't get enough props with how they're managing some game lands. I mean, some areas they're a little bit miss on, but some areas I've noticed with their prescribed burns and their cutting and everything else, they're creating really good habitat. So I give props to them. Let's see. Things that need to be addressed. Sunday hunting. We need it.
Yeah.
Let's catch up with the times.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. There's really no reason for us not to have it, except for the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau that just keeps cock blocking us. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we could tear down that road because
I have a really big compromise here, and for everybody out there that may be against Sunday hunting or on the fence of it, okay, our license sales directly fund the game lands.
Yep.
We should be able to use the game lands and our own private property, or actually places we have access that would allow Sunday hunting. We should have permit. We should be able to hunt Sundays on game lands and private property.
Mm-hmm.
Now, state forests and state parks, go ahead, close them for Sundays, so that could go ahead and be the hikers and bikers and leaf peepers and everybody else's recreation areas.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That way, everybody wins to a degree.
Yeah.
Farmers want to complain, oh, we want a day of rest. Well, then post your farms as such.
Right.
Tell the people that you give permission, no Sunday hunting. Well, people will trespass anyways. People are going to trespass anyways, regardless.
Yeah.
You can't stop that.
Brother, I I mean, I challenge, and I say this on plenty of podcasts, I challenge anybody to give me a good argument against it. And like I've had one or two things where I was like, "Well, you make a good point, but here's why I think, you know." And my rebuttal's always I feel like it's always better just because it doesn't really make any sense. But it's a law, and it's one of them things like Pennsylvania is just old school on how many other things, so it doesn't surprise you at all.
You know, and a big thing that does concern me, we need to keep politicians out of decisions for wildlife management.
Whew. Oh my, that's a big one there.
Yeah, well, I do not want to see us go down that road, and that's a very, very dark path. So let's keep that nonsense out of it.
Yeah, I mean, we could end up being like New Jersey,
Yeah, freaking ballot box, freaking biology. Let's not have that shit.
Right.
But yeah, that's how I see things. I mean, right now it's a positive outlook on a lot of things, and just the Sunday hunting is the one thing that I kind of want to see come to fruition in my lifetime.
I think we will, to be honest with you, but there's just too much good that could come from it. I mean, can you imagine, the non-resident hunting boom on top of what we already have is a pretty good non-resident program, because you gave that guy that, we're talking blue-collar guys like ourselves, like, so you gave him that extra day to do that, so he left work early Friday or took off Friday or worked 4 10s or whatever the hell his schedule was, so he could hunt Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's humongous. I mean, it's good for everybody. It's good for the whole gander. There's no doubt about it. So I think you'll see it moving forward. You'll get somebody in there that'll be able to push it through. And I mean, like you said, the only thing that sucks is, man, there's just so much politics behind everything. We were talking about like the story of Dr. Alt and shit, and dude, the politics that he talks about and like how they were able to do that and how it got passed, like it was just politics. It's the only reason they were able to do it.
Yep, it's scary, man.
Yeah, it is, man. It is. But listen, brother, this has been an awesome conversation, and you've been a friend of the show for a long time, so it's no surprise that we'll probably have you come back through. And we were talking about planning a double down or some sort of freaking menage a trois of a bunch of different freaking hunters coming together and doing an episode of just straight killer talk.
Yeah, the round table. Yeah, that's kind of a goal of mine. I'd like to get a bunch of different guys who run podcasts in Pennsylvania and have them sit down and just do a roundtable discussion of the progression of hunting in Pennsylvania and the modern Pennsylvania bow hunter. Just a big bullshit session. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can air out grievances, this, that, and the other, and just talk, converse, have intelligent conversations.
Yeah, that sounds like a blast for me, and I can't. Yeah, we'll definitely have to get that together, get it all summed up, and I'm sure that we'll have plenty of people interested in that. So, with that being said, brother, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we can't wait to catch up with you and see what this year holds.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I really appreciate you having me on.
All right, brother. Well, we will talk to you soon.
Sounds good, brother.
You have made it through another episode of the Keystone Chronicles podcast. Guys, thank you so much for all the love and support. I really do appreciate it. I love the comments. I love whenever you guys say, hey, let's try to get this or that guy on. Keep it coming. I appreciate it. Keep coming back for more. Guys, please go give Travis a follow over at Anthracite Antler Addicts. He's always doing something cool on his Instagram page. And don't be afraid to reach out to him and BS with him. What a great guy. We'll see you on the next episode.